Today, we're going to dive deep into the life and mind of one of history's most brilliant and maybe even dangerous thinkers, a man whose strategies didn't just shape a country, they built an empire.
I mean, seriously, just try to picture it. A single mind, so sharp, so strategic, that it could bring a corrupt dynasty to its knees and then, from the ashes, build one of the greatest kingdoms the ancient world had ever seen. And get this, his ideas are still being studied by leaders today over 2,000 years later. That man's name was Chanakya, and his name has become a legend, totally synonymous with strategy, politics, and a kind of timeless, hard-hitting wisdom.
So, who exactly was this guy? What made him the original political genius?
Okay, let's get the basics down. We're talking way back in the 4th century BCE. Chanakya, who also went by the name Kautilya, was a true powerhouse of intellect. He was a philosopher, an economist, a teacher, but his real claim to fame? He was the royal advisor, the chief architect behind the massive Mauryan Empire. But here's the thing. His journey wasn't born from privilege, not even close. It was a story forged in public humiliation and fueled by an absolutely unbreakable will. This is where it all kicks off. So picture this. Chanakya gets publicly insulted by this arrogant, corrupt king from the Nanda dynasty. Now, most people would back down, right? Not him. Instead, he makes this incredibly powerful vow. He will not rest until he has utterly destroyed the Nanda regime. So, with this single goal burning in his mind, he goes searching for someone worthy of the throne and finds him in a young, promising kid named Chandragupta Maurya. Chanakya takes him under his wing, mentors him, trains him, and together they mastermind the entire campaign that not only crushes the Nandas, but gives birth to the mighty Mauryan Empire. It's just a wild story of how one person's determination can literally redraw the map. Now, what's so incredible is that Chanakya didn't just build an empire, he literally wrote the instruction manuals for it. He left behind these 2 legendary works that are just packed with his genius. So, on one hand, you've got the Arthashastra. You can think of this as the ultimate CEO's guide to running a country. It covers everything: economic policy, foreign relations, military tactics, law. It's all about the big picture art of power. And then, on the other hand, you have the Chanakya Niti. This is more personal. It's a collection of short, punchy verses on how to live a successful life, a guide to ethics, smart choices, and just winning at life. One's for the state, the other's for the individual. And this quote right here from the Arthashastra just nails his pragmatic style. He knew that real leadership wasn't about being the most popular guy in the room or the most terrifying. It's a delicate balance, all designed to earn genuine, unshakable respect.
Then you get a piece of wisdom like this from the Chanakya Niti. I mean, how modern is that? It's not some ancient, dusty advice. It's a practical framework you could use today before starting any project. It's all about checking your intention, your foresight, and being honest with yourself. 3 pillars for getting anything done.
So if we boil all this down, what are the big ideas that really drove him? Well, his whole philosophy kind of rests on 4 foundational pillars. First up, and this was huge for him, was discipline. Chanakya's logic was simple. How can you possibly hope to control a kingdom if you can't even control yourself? It all begins with mastering your own impulses and having that laser-like focus. Second, he was a stone-cold realist. This idea of pragmatism meant that wishful thinking was the most dangerous trap a leader could fall into. You had to make the hard calls based on the facts on the ground, not the world you wished you lived in. Third is strategic foresight. This is that 4D chess mindset, right? Chanakya was convinced that victory had nothing to do with luck. It was won or lost before the battle even started. It's all about outplanning, anticipating every move, and never ever underestimating your competition. And finally, the pillar that holds everything else up, the power of knowledge. At his core, Chanakya was a teacher. He was absolutely convinced that armies, money, power, all of that stuff is temporary. The only true, lasting strength is built on a foundation of wisdom and education.
Okay, so this all might sound like fascinating ancient history. But the real reason we're talking about him today is because his ideas are just ridiculously timeless. So why does Chanakya still matter now?
Well, check it out. His ancient principles map almost perfectly onto modern ideas. What he called strategic foresight, we now call business risk management. His pragmatic approach to governance, that's modern diplomacy. His lessons on using resources wisely are basically the foundation of entrepreneurship. And understanding your opponents, that's just competitive market analysis 101.
To put it in a Western context, you could call him the Machiavelli of India. But here's the crucial difference, and it's a big one. Chanakya was writing his razor-sharp advice on power and politics nearly 2,000 years before Machiavelli was even born. It's just mind-blowing.
So, the ultimate lesson, the one idea that echoes through all of his work, is this. Knowledge is the ultimate weapon. It's the real source of any power that's built to last.
Because in the end, empires, companies, fortunes, they all have an expiration date. They rise and they fall. But true wisdom, the kind of insight Chanakya shared, that stuff is eternal. Which kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on. Chanakya was the master of pragmatism, of doing what works. But he was also driven by this idealistic vision of a just and strong empire. So it makes you wonder, in our leaders, and maybe even in our own lives, what is the right balance between idealism and pragmatism?